Welcome back to Moose on the Loose. My name's David, and today we've got Danielle Smith asking Justin Trudeau, basically telling him, hey, you need to fire Stephen Guilbeault. This is, there are knock-on effects here. Justin Trudeau is in Alberta. It goes back and forth. Reporters ask about it.
Premier, did you come to any agreements or make any movement towards any agreements with the Prime Minister in your meeting this morning?
One of the things that we both agreed is that the tables that we've set up with our officials are working very well. So I would say that we have we've got common cause for sure on the issue of hydrogen and how to be able to get that as the new fuel of the future to the market. I did make him aware that we have a sense of urgency around the issue of resolving issues around ammonia, because the Japanese are going to be going to an RFP for a 20-year supply in the coming months, and we want to be able to participate in that. It would be nice to have the federal government weigh in and offer some support for that. We are talking about small modular reactors so that we can potentially go forward and start working around the permitting on that. And we have many projects that we work in common with. I met on the weekend with Francois-Philippe Champagne to talk about some of the areas where we're able to work together. I think there's many ways in which we can work constructively together. And so I do try to focus on the positive. Obviously, I let him know that I don't have as great a relationship as one of his other ministers, or with one of his other ministers. And I expressed my desire in person that if he chose to make a change in that portfolio, I'd be happy to have a reset in our relationship on that front. But we're going to work on the things that we can work together on.
Yeah, so in so many words, she basically told him that she wants him to fire Guilbeault. Now, that's not the end of it. That's just the start of it. There's a clip here of them actually talking and meeting.
But it's a big country. It really is.
I have to spend 4 hours getting back to Edmonton, so we'll say, yeah.
Great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Would you like me to start?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting the Prime Minister today. We have so much to talk about. We actually have had some wonderful collaborations on some great emissions reductions projects. Air Products, which is a hydrogen net zero project. Dow Chemical, which is a net zero petrochemical project. We're hoping to get to a final investment decision together with Heidelberg, which would be a net zero cement project. On an area where we don't quite see eye to eye, the carbon tax, I think we've now seen 7 premiers have suggested that we need a pause on April the 1st. So I'm very hopeful that we can maybe come to some solution on that to address issues of affordability. So those are the things I'd like to be talking about today.
Thank you very much, Danielle. It's great to be back in Calgary. Glad to be sitting down with you to talk about, indeed, all the things that we have been working on together. In addition to all the investments and the work.
I've been stealing everyone's money and I'm doing a good job. So he just goes on to babble here. But something to note, when she mentions the carbon tax, it's very subtle. Look at his body language here.
The carbon tax, I think we've now.
So one thing to notice here is his thumb. He's holding his hands clasped like this with, how do I rotate this here? This thumb on the back side of that thumb. And when she asked that, this squeezes hard. So he is squeezing his whole hand like this. You can see by this thumb squeezing in. You can also see his gaze goes from looking over at her to looking down at the ground. It's a question he doesn't want to address. He doesn't want to talk about it, and he's very uncomfortable about it. Just watch right here.
An area where we don't quite see eye to eye, the carbon tax, I think we've now seen 7 premiers have suggested that we need a pause on April the 1st. So I'm very hopeful that...
He's like, I'm going to have to address this now. And then he looks back, see, he gathered his thoughts there. He doesn't like this question.
We can maybe come to some solution on that to address issues
fake smile, little
of affordability. So those are the things I'd like to be talking about.
And then just gaze goes away. And after this, you'll notice he doesn't look at her very much anymore. If you watch this whole interview, which is unnecessary.
Obviously, we will also talk about pricing pollution and making sure we're protecting future generations and jobs. I'll highlight that as of...
This guy's more worried about protecting future generations than people living in tents right now. What an absolute loser. He's obviously doing this to cash in, because if you watch the previous video talking about the furniture, the guy who owns a furniture store there, who builds the furniture store, I say, you know, having the roll of foam comes in, there's the carbon tax that's on the gas on that vehicle bringing it in, and then there's carbon tax on the guy who brings in the wood, and the guy who brings in the fabric, and the guy who brings in the legs of the chair, and then the guy who ships it to the actual warehouse where it's sold, and then the truck that ships it to the person's house. Carbon tax, carbon tax, carbon tax, carbon tax. Obviously, it's a big scam. So basically, he doesn't really address what she's saying here about Guilbeault or anything. That he has to wait until she's not around because he's a spineless little fool. So later on, he's having this press conference here while still in Alberta, while Danielle Smith isn't around, and he actually talks about it. One of the reporters asks a double question. I'll break it off here so we can just keep it all in context.
This one's an easy one. Are you more or less likely to fire your environment minister because Premier Smith keeps saying you should fire your environment minister?
In regards to my environment minister, I have tremendous faith and confidence in my environment minister. And if people are having a trouble getting along with him, maybe they need to look at their own approach to these big issues, as opposed to looking at what he's talking about, which is consistent with building a better future for everyone.
Wow, he just told Danielle Smith that she's the problem. Look at this smug piece of crap. Just vile. This guy's absolutely vile.
Number one, what do you say to people who aren't buying what you just said? Aren't buying your argument, and they're not.
So the argument he's talking about is Trudeau just spent like 3 minutes or something talking about the carbon tax, and it's all nonsense, and you don't need to hear that. There's 3 minutes of him afterwards I will play because he actually goes very in depth into it. I've never heard him talk this much about it. The first 3 minutes is just generic crap, like you get more money back, blah, 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 like the same crap we always hear.
Not just all conservatives or all politicians or all misinformation people. So what do you say to those people, including premiers, including Premier Smith, who aren't buying that argument?
Listen, right now, everyone is stressed out with the cost of living.
Yeah, you aren't.
It is a stressful time. There are massive challenges around the world in terms of inflation, in terms of supply chains. There are wars going on in a way that is putting more pressure on people and emotional angst on a whole bunch of people in every community. There is uncertainties. We're still, in some ways, recovering from the effects of the acute pandemic that we just had. We're dealing with, countries getting more protectionistic in a whole bunch of different ways. There are real challenges in the world right now.
He's talking about Donald Trump basically saying if Canada doesn't pay pay our way with NATO. That's what he's talking about, protectionistic. He's worried about Trump.
Now, and one of the challenges everybody is seeing is climate change. We had one of the worst years for wildfires ever, on top of some of the worst years for floods, and droughts in different parts of the country as well.
Did he just say dreads?
For floods, and droughts. The impacts of climate change are real. We are seeing that investors from around the world are looking to where they can rely on clean energy, where they can develop some of the climate solutions they have. For decades now, as people saw the challenges with the environment, the political will just wasn't there because there wasn't enough support for it across the country. Who would want to actually, face a challenge that really is only going to hit a few decades from now? That'll be someone else's problem, is unfortunately the easiest way to respond to this. We don't have to do anything. It won't hit us now while I'm in office, so let's just push off the problem for more and more people to deal with. You can't have a plan for the economy if you don't have a plan to fight climate change. So then the question becomes, well, how do you fight climate change? There are lots of different ways you can do it. You can bring in the heavy hand of regulations. You can bring in different incentives and subsidies and rewards to invest in companies that are actually doing the right kinds of things. But that all involves the heavy hand of government weighing in on how we're going to do that. I prefer a cleaner solution, a market-based solution. If you're behaving in ways that are going to cause pollution that is going to impact the whole community, you should pay for that pollution so the community then doesn't suffer the negative sides of it or have to clean it up on their own dime.
So guess what? If you're driving to work, you have to pay for that. This guy has absolutely lost his mind. This is just a big front. I'm not buying this crap. Really, if you had a real plan for climate change, it would involve planting tons of trees. It would be putting a mandate across the country, no more logging of old growth trees that are of a certain size. It would be talking to China, talking to India, like setting up plans, developing new technology. It's not taking our money and giving it back to us, and that's solving climate change. Give me a break.
So that's why putting a price on carbon emissions just makes sense. So we said pollution will have a price on it. But more than that, we know there's a lot of families across this country who don't have huge amounts of choices in terms of, oh, I'm just going to buy a much more fuel-efficient car, or I'm going to replace my roof or my insulation or my windows. That's a hard investment to make. So we wanted to make sure that people who continue to not be able to change much in their behaviors would get that money back.
Let me educate you here, buddy. If you bought a brand new, whatever, a Tesla roof, you would be paying carbon tax to get the Tesla roof installed, because the trucks, the whole bit, like, you don't get a discount to get a Tesla roof installed.
But think about a family that does decide, oh, okay, you know what, we can get a slightly smaller car, or we're going to replace our windows, we'll go for the slightly more fuel-efficient windows. Well, they actually get more money back because they're spending less on that price on pollution. So it's a logical way to do things, but yes, it does require putting a price on things right now so that we can set ourselves up for success in the future.
He almost said failure there. Did you see the F in his mouth? He went, and then he switched it.
So that we can set ourselves up for success, so that we can set ourselves up for success. And that's an easy thing for short-term politicians to say, oh, we'll get rid of the price. They don't talk about the fact that they're also going to get rid of that check, the Canada carbon rebate. Your question, Rick, is sort of, well, that all makes sense. Why are so many people still against it? Well, you know, that's a question we all have to ask. But my job is not to be popular. My job, although it helps, my job is to do the right things for Canada now and do the right things for Canadians a generation from now.
This is the worst man in Canadian history standing right here. He is the worst man.
And yeah, it's not always popular. But I know that doing the right things today, that support people today, that deliver that better future a generation from now, 2 generations from now, is going to make a huge difference in the path we take forward.
Tell that to the people sleeping in the tents, you pile of garbage. Like, just disgraceful bag of crap. Just the absolute face of corruption right there. So next up, Justin Trudeau is questioned about how to deal with Scott Moe not collecting the carbon tax in Saskatchewan. And he looks like he actually gets angry here because it's basically, it's taken away the power from this narcissist. And he doesn't like that. He legitimately looks angry.
Given that Saskatchewan has decided not to rebate the carbon tax, there's been some question over possible penalties over the Saskatchewan Premier breaking the law. It's something that Danielle Smith has been worried about as well. And it all seems to kind of come back to the carve out for the home heating oil back in Atlantic Canada. So the question is what would these consequences be for not rebating the tax? And do you have any regrets about carving out the home heating oil?
So before he gets to this, I just want to point out his body language here because it's very telling. He puts his hand over his face. Usually when someone's lying, they cover their mouth. It's a psychological thing to protect the lie coming out of your mouth. And he doesn't like this question at all because he doesn't know how to handle it. He knows if he attacks Scott Moe and, you know, puts him in jail or whatever, then he'll martyr him and he'll make him a hero and he becomes the villain. If he doesn't do anything, he's this weak leader who can't handle these situations, this conflict.
Do you have any regrets about carving out the home heating oil?
Well, first of all, on home heating oil, let's be very clear. There are thousands of families here in Alberta and in Saskatchewan and in every part of the country that still rely on home heating oil, which is more polluting, more expensive, more subject to international price fluctuations, and is perversely more relied on by proportionately lower income households. Yes, we want to give home heating oil customers a free heat pump.
You're not giving them, it's taxpayer dollars to pay for it. Nothing is free, man. Stop using language like that.
So they can save money and heat their homes more reliably over the future. On the decision by the government of Saskatchewan to not pay its taxes to the federal government. As we've seen from a few different premiers, you can use the notwithstanding clause to opt out of basic charter rights of Canadians. I think it's a bad idea, but a number of people are doing it. You can opt out of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms by using the notwithstanding clause. But you can't opt out of the Federation. You can't opt out of Canada. We are a country of laws. We're a country of rules and responsibilities. And it's evolved over 150 plus years to be this extraordinarily successful country we have. And we expect people to obey the law. That's what governments expect of their citizens. That's what citizens should expect of their governments.
Yeah, why do you break the law so much, Scandal King? This is so rich. This guy's the biggest loser in the country. I wouldn't really expect any less from Trudeau to have that meeting with Danielle Smith and then right behind her back be blaming her. He's such a pathetic little man. That's where we're going to leave this episode. I've got numerous other episodes coming up. The Christian Firth was questioned today by committee in Parliament, and it's wild. I just went through all 3.5 hours of that. I've got timestamps, but it's going to take some time to make videos on that. Plus, what happens in the committee is they all get 5 minutes and then they have to move on and they go back to these people. So what happens is you'll get like Michael Barrett ask questions and then he's cut off after 5 minutes. Then he just continues on. So I'm going to string together all the segments throughout the 3 hours to get these nice blocks of each person. And the Conservatives absolutely rip into that guy. It's wild. So stay tuned for those episodes coming up. Thanks for stopping by and watching the video. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification. I also have 2 other Moose on the Loose channels that I've started up here. One is an extra channel, which is just going to be extra clips, things I don't think are going to be quite as appealing to the general public, but it's still House of Commons, Trudeau, the whole mania, as well as maybe some other formats and stuff I want to test out. And the other one is a clips channel. The clips is just direct small clips from both of this channel and the extra channel. There's nothing new on the clips channel, so subscribe to it if you want. It's linked there. But I set it up not only to bring in more people to my channel here, but to get the word out more, to get the truth out about what's going on here with Trudeau. And sometimes it's the small 2 or 3 minute clips that people would rather watch than a much bigger 10, 12, 17 minute video. If you want to subscribe to those, check them out. I'm going to start uploading more videos here on my second channel, the extra channel, soon. Big thanks to all of you who keep leaving those donations. I greatly appreciate it. Stay warm, stay fed. I'll see you guys in the next one.